Here's one I've been looking forward to revisiting. Rare really were at their best in the late 90s. They extended the life cycle of the SNES with the Donkey Kong Country trilogy, demonstrated some impressive 3D acumen with Blast Corps, and brought about the NES evolution of the first-person shooter with GoldenEye. All that success, and they hadn't even released their main project, which was set to be a 3D platformer called banjo-kazooie. Nintendo had big expectations for Banjo-Kazooie and allocated a sizable amount of resources to market the game for the 1997 holiday season. There was just one problem. Banjo-Kazooie wasn't going to be ready in time and would have to be pushed back to the following year. This left Nintendo with a big hole in their release schedule, but by this point they had become aware of Rare's policy of quality and quantity. They figured they had something in the works that was close to completion that could take the place of Banjo-Kazooie, and they were of course correct in that assumption. The game that fit the bill was a smaller project Rare had in the works called Pro-Am 64. A sequel to Rare's NES game, Pro-Am Racing, Nintendo was impressed with the game. The technology was great, and with Mario Kart 64 doing so well, Nintendo thought another racer would be a safe bet. They were, however, worried about marketability, as the name Pro-Am Racing didn't carry much weight, something that Rare themselves echoed. Thankfully, Miyamoto happened to be part of these discussions and suggested Rare retheme the game to be a Donkey Kong spinoff. Rare liked the idea, but opted to give the starring role to DK's sidekick, Diddy Kong. This was a smart move. Not only had Diddy proven himself to be popular enough to carry his own game, he fit in pretty well with all the characters they had already made, so it didn't take much to retheme the game. The game would release in November of '97 with a massive marketing campaign to boot. Diddy Kong Racing proved to be exactly what the doctor ordered, as DKR would become the hot title of the 1997 holiday season.
I am the genie of the island. I'm here to help you. Good luck.
Diddy Kong Racing centers around Timber the Tiger, who has been left in charge of his family's island while his parents are away on vacation. Timber invites his friends over so that they can make use of the island's tracks for some high-speed fun, only for the good times to be ruined by the arrival of the Whizbig, an alien wizard who takes control of the island and challenges the best racer to face him. When their best racer disappears after going to answer Whizpig's challenge, Timber calls in his friend Diddy Kong to even the odds, defeat Whizpig, and save the island. It's interesting that Diddy Kong Racing has such an in-depth story. Most racing games like this don't bother with story because, well, it's typically unnecessary. And while the story here isn't Shakespeare or anything, it does elevate the game quite a bit. It creates a believable setting, introduces us to a great cast of characters, and pits players against a memorable villain. It's good stuff, and it stuck with me and many other people after all these years. I'd also be remiss if I didn't mention that Diddy Kong Racing marks the first appearance of Banjo the Honey Bear and Conker the Squirrel. Both having games in development at the time, Rare decided to use the game to promote their pending releases. It's of course cool to see Banjo, but it's especially hilarious to see Conker here, considering what his game would end up being. The technology on display here is really impressive too. You can tell that Rare have been tinkering with the N64's hardware for a bit because this game runs circles around Mario Kart 64. The colors are brighter, the character models are more detailed, and the game does some cool things with water and lighting. I especially appreciate that they had the characters rendered as 3D models as opposed to pre-rendered sprites. This alleviates that disconnect that made the control of Mario Kart 64 so floaty. Now, that's not to say that Rare doesn't use pre-rendered assets. The wheels, propellers, and balloons are all pre-rendered, but they are minor and incidental, so they blend a lot better. It all runs at a smooth frame rate as well. Rare was really pushing what the N64 could do, and they'd only get better with it as the years went by. The music is great as well. It was composed by David Wise, the same guy who did Donkey Kong Country, and it has his fingerprints all over it. In fact, he would experiment with some motifs that would come to characterize Banjo-Kazooie. I especially love the sound effects in this game. When you hit a zipper, you feel that burst of speed, and it's so satisfying to cross the finish line. It's great stuff. Looking at the gameplay thus far, you'd be forgiven for thinking that it's just a simple Mario Kart clone. However, it's a bit more nuanced than that. For starters, the game provides more for the lone player to do. In Mario Kart, the single player gameplay mostly boiled down to just trying to get gold in every cup. In Diddy Kong Racing, you have a full adventure mode. This sees you exploring Timber Island while participating in races. For each race you win, you earn a gold balloon, and the more gold balloons you have, the more races you will be able to participate in. Kinda like how Super Mario 64 was structured actually. There are also extra challenges to tackle, secrets to uncover, bosses to conquer, and a good old-fashioned Grand Prix to enter. It's great stuff, and it makes Diddy Kong Racing feel a little more complete. The item system is different as well. In Mario Kart, when you hit an item box, what you get is completely random. In Diddy Kong Racing, what item you get corresponds to the color of the balloon, so you can pick and choose what you need rather than just taking what you get. Not only that, but the items are upgradable up to 3 levels. So let's say you get a red balloon, which gives you a rocket that you can shoot at other racers. You could go ahead and try to use it, or you could wait and grab another red balloon so you can upgrade to a homing rocket. This adds more strategy to the item usage and makes Diddy Kong Racing a more skill-based racer. However, the biggest innovation, and one I'm sure you've noticed by now, is that Diddy Kong Racing does not limit itself to just a standard kart. You can also race on a hovercraft and an airplane. And the different vehicles are not exclusive to specific tracks. Though it is true that some tracks only allow for just one vehicle, most of the time you have your choice. And how they balance out the different vehicles is great. The car is the fastest, but it loses a lot of speed when it goes off-road, a problem the hovercraft does not suffer from. In fact, the hovercraft can cross water without losing speed, but this comes at the cost of speed and control. The plane can fly over everything, so it isn't slowed down by off-roading, and it can reach places the other two vehicles can't, all at the cost of being the slowest of the three. It's a good thing they balance them out like that, otherwise I feel like the plane would win races too easily. All these features do a good job setting Diddy Kong Racing apart from Mario Kart. Though the two do share a lot of DNA, they are able to stand apart from each other. Comparing them is like comparing Iron Man and Batman. Yeah, they are both rich dudes who use their wealth and gadgets to fight crime, but the two employ very distinct methods of fighting crime. That being said, people often debate which is better between this and Mario Kart 64. Personally, I prefer Diddy Kong Racing. I think it's a more polished game and I enjoy its breadth of single-player content. However, I feel what you prefer between these two games really comes down to preference. Both are great, so I don't think it matters which is better. That being said, I am willing to acknowledge Diddy Kong Racing's faults. For starters, as cool as the adventure mode is, it is a little repetitive. It mostly boils down to win 4 races, beat the boss, complete the silver coin challenge, where you have to collect a set of coins in addition to winning, and then race the boss again. Rinse and repeat 5 times until the game ends. It would have been cooler if they had a variety of challenges for the player, as opposed to just a silver coin challenge. Maybe something along the lines of career mode in Sonic and Sega All-Star Racing Transformed. There's also some difficulty spikes here and there, namely in regards to the WizPig boss races. I think the biggest problem with Diddy Kong Racing though is that as a multiplayer game, it leaves something to be desired, at least at first. You see, out of the box you only have access to 4 tracks. You actually have to play the single player in order to unlock the rest. That's a problem because when you do eventually play a multiplayer, whoever was playing in single player is going to have the advantage. That's probably why Diddy Kong Racing isn't as fondly remembered as a multiplayer classic like Mario Kart 64 is. It was very much a case of the pros outweighing the cons though, because Diddy Kong Racing was a huge hit when it first released. In fact, it was at the time the fastest selling video game in the history of the industry. Despite having a smaller install base than Sony at the time, Diddy Kong Racing sold better than anything on PlayStation at the time, at least during the holiday season of '97. Though Diddy Kong Racing sold well, it didn't enjoy the same consistent sales that Mario Kart 64 or GoldenEye did, with sales tapering off after a while. By the end of the console's life cycle, it had only reached number 8 overall in terms of sales, which is nothing to sneeze at for sure, but still pretty far below other games that we've looked at thus far. Rare had plans to follow up Diddy Kong Racing with Donkey Kong Racing for the GameCube and Diddy Kong Pilot for Game Boy Advance. However, not too long after these games were announced, Rare was purchased by Microsoft, stripping them of the Donkey Kong IP and forcing them to rebrand Diddy Kong Pilot as Banjo-Pilot while canceling Donkey Kong Racing altogether. Rare would eventually remake Diddy Kong Racing for the DS, but everyone agrees that this is a subpar version of the game, so I wouldn't bother. It's a shame that Diddy Kong Racing's popularity was so short-lived, because it really is a gem. Much like Star Fox 64 though, the fact that Diddy Kong Racing never got a proper follow-up makes it seem a little more special. Even today, Diddy Kong Racing does a lot of unique stuff, and it seems like the industry is now taking notice of that fact, with games like Sonic and All-Star Racing Transformed and Mario Kart World taking some clear influence from it. It's also the truest of N64 exclusives, as there isn't any other way to play it. The game is not currently available on modern platforms, so if you want to give it a shot, you have to play it on hardware. I do hope that the game eventually sees new life on N64 Online, and I feel that could happen. I mean, if Nintendo can work out a deal to get Banjo-Kazooie and GoldenEye on Switch, I see no reason why we can't have Diddy Kong Racing as well. Make it happen, Nintendo. This is just too wonderful a game for it to be left to time.
Finish!